Have you ever opened a bag of chips intending to eat just a handful, only to discover the bag is suddenly empty? Or promise yourself that tomorrow would be different, only to find yourself reaching for the same foods again? If so, you're not weak, you're human. For years, many people have believed that unhealthy eating is simply a matter of discipline. But modern neuroscience tells a different story. What if your cravings aren't a character flaw? What if they're the predictable result of your brain that has been trained to seek intense stimulation? And what if your brain can be retrained? Today, we're exploring how your taste buds, your gut bacteria, your environment, and your brain work together to shape your food choices, and how you can gently rewire those systems to create lasting food freedom. Let's begin with dopamine. Dopamine is often called a feel-good chemical, but that's only partly true. Its real job is motivation. It drives us toward experiences our brain believes are rewarding. And food manufacturers understand this so well. Many ultra-processed foods are engineered to deliver intense combination of sugar, fat, salt, and texture. These combinations stimulate reward pathways far beyond what our ancestors experienced in nature. And the brain learns quickly. It begins to associate these foods with pleasure and convenience. Over time, cravings can become automatic. This is why reaching for certain foods often feels effortless, while choosing healthier options can feel like work. The important thing to remember is this. A craving is often evidence that your brain has been successfully trained, and what has been trained can be retrained. Here's something fascinating. Taste receptor cells are continually replaced. In other words, your palate is not fixed. Many people assume they simply don't like vegetables or healthier foods. But preferences are surprisingly adaptable. Think about coffee. Many people dislike the first cup, but years later, they can't imagine starting the day without it. The same principle applies to food. Repeated exposure changes perception. Foods that once seemed bland begins revealing subtle flavors. And the palate learns. The brain learns, and new preferences emerge. This is neuroplasticity in action. The brain's ability to recognize itself based on repeated experiences. Let's pause for a moment and talk about neuroplasticity of taste. Every bite teaches your brain something. When you repeatedly consume highly stimulating foods, your brain becomes accustomed to intensity. And natural foods can seem overwhelming by comparison. But the reverse is also true. As exposure to whole foods increases, the brain begins to adapt to these new sensory experiences. And over time, people often report that fruits taste sweeter. Vegetables taste more interesting. And the foods they once loved begin tasting overly sweet or salty. The remarkable thing isn't that you're forcing yourself to change, it's that your brain is changing with you. Have you ever noticed that after eating a large meal, dessert still sounds appealing? That's because the brain responds differently to novelty. Scientists call this sensory-specific satiety. The more variety and stimulation we encounter, the more likely we are to continue eating. And food companies often capitalize on this phenomenon. Different textures, different flavors, different combinations, each creates renewed interest. You can use this knowledge in your favor. Building simple meals, satisfying foods that often reduce the endless cycle of craving more stimulation. The goal isn't deprivation. The goal is reducing the constant sensory excitement that keeps the reward system activated. One of the biggest mistakes people often make is trying to leap from highly processed foods directly into foods that feel unfamiliar. That can be difficult at times. Instead, consider using flavor bridges. A flavor bridge creates a gradual transition. For example, if you enjoy sweetened yogurt, slowly reduce sweetness over time by adding fresh fruits. Or if you enjoy heavily seasoned foods, begin incorporating fresh herbs and natural spices. If vegetables seem boring, pair them with familiar flavors you already enjoy. The brain generally accepts gradual change more easily than abrupt change. Small adjustments often create the most sustainable transformation. Now let's talk about one of the most exciting areas of research, the gut-brain axis. Inside your digestive system lives a vast ecosystem of microorganisms. These microbes don't simply help to digest foods. They communicate with the brain through chemical signaling pathways. And researchers increasingly believe that the foods we regularly consume influence which microbes thrive. And those microbes may influence future cravings. Think of it this way. The foods you eat today will determine the biological signals you experience tomorrow. Your internal ecosystem is constantly adapting. So what foods help support a healthier microbial environment? Many experts focus on prebiotic-rich foods. These include fresh garlic, onions, leeks, oats, beans, lentils, asparagus, artichokes, apples, and green bananas. These foods nourish beneficial bacteria that support digestive metabolic health. The process does not happen overnight, but over several weeks. Many people notice that healthier choices begin to feel more natural, not because they're forcing themselves, but because their biology is changing. Now here's the uncomfortable truth. Most of our daily decisions are influenced by cues we barely notice. The brain is constantly scanning the environment. What it sees matters. What it smells matters. What it repeatedly encounters matters. Something like a bowl of fresh fruit on the counter creates a message. Or a visible package of cookies creates another. The same principles apply to digital environments. Food advertisements, social media foods, social media feeds, constant exposure to highly stimulating food imagery. These cues can trigger cravings long before hunger appears. The simplest strategy is to make healthy choices more visible and less healthy choices less convenient. Reduce friction for success and increase friction for habits you're trying to change. Imagine the next 2 weeks as a calibration period. Not a diet, no punishment, a reset. During these 14 days, focus on whole foods, increase fiber and stay hydrated. And reduce ultra-processed foods. Add a new healthy food every few days. And yes, please expect some discomfort. Your brain is adjusting. Your microbiome is adjusting as well. And your habit is adjusting. The goal here is progress, not perfection. A simple, difficult day does not erase the benefits of the previous 13 days. Now hear this. Many cravings emerge during moments of stress. Let me repeat that. Many cravings emerge during moments of stress. Not because we're hungry, but because we are seeking relief. Recognizing this distinction is powerful. When stress appears, pause and ask, am I feeling hunger or am I feeling emotion? Sometimes the answer may be emotion, and that's okay. Awareness itself is progress. Social gatherings can also feel challenging. But remember, you don't need perfect choices. You need intentional choices. Flexibility often supports long-term success better than rigid rules. Perhaps the most hopeful message in all this is that healthy eating eventually becomes easier. Not because you become more disciplined, but because your biology begins working with you instead of against you. The foods that once felt irresistible lose some of their power. The foods that once felt boring become satisfying. And what initially feels like effort becomes habit. Real food freedom isn't constantly fighting cravings. It's reaching the point where nourishing choices become your genuine preference. Your brain is adaptable. Your taste buds are adaptable. And so is your microbiome. And perhaps most importantly, your future is adaptable. The habits that once shaped today's cravings do not have to define tomorrow's choices. Small changes, repeated consistently, can create remarkable transformation. If you enjoyed this video, I'd love to hear from you. Have your food preferences changed over the years? What healthy food did you once dislike and now enjoy? Share your experience in the comments below. And until next time, remember, sometimes the most powerful changes happen quietly. One choice, one meal, and one day at a time. This is Meritage Shades of Light, signing off.